I saw my daughter-in-law pack a nurse's uniform, a nun's habit, and 12 new condoms into her suitcase while my son lay motionless in bed. The next day, I got the number of her lover and called him. "Congratulations, you're going to be a father. Tell my daughter-in-law she no longer has a home to return to." I took all her belongings to his house, and what his wife said froze me. "I'm glad you're here. If you're watching this video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments where you're listening to my revenge story from. I want to know how far the word has spread." The atmosphere at the hospital was heavy, and the smell of disinfectant clung to every breath. I squeezed Alexander's bony hand. His ice-cold fingers pierced my heart. My son, barely 32, lay there, pale, his eyes sunken from the endless days of fighting that cursed illness. The doctor had just left, giving a few cold instructions. The weather was changing. I needed to bring lighter clothes and some personal items for Alexander. His look, heavy with worry and also impotence, cut me like a knife. I nodded, but only one thought remained in my head. I must stay by my son's side, never leaving for a moment. That afternoon, I rushed home by bus. The street was dusty and the horns blared nonstop, but I paid no attention. I didn't call Isabel, my daughter-in-law, because I thought I would only stop for a few things and immediately return to the hospital. I didn't want to waste a minute away from Alexander. Isabel, whom I had always considered a daughter, constantly repeated how much she loved her husband and how much she cared for him. I had believed her. I had trusted that she would be my son's support during these dark days. The house was silent when I entered. The living room was empty, not a soul around. The midday light streamed through the window, illuminating suspended dust particles, as if the whole world was holding its breath. I didn't think much. I just wanted to grab the clothes and leave. I went upstairs and pushed open the door to Alexander and Isabel's bedroom, convinced I would find some clean changes of clothes for my son there. But as soon as I opened the door, I froze. In the middle of the floor, a large suitcase was lying wide open. The clothes inside were perfectly folded, but not the type I had seen Isabel wear for work. The first thing that caught my eye was a white nurse's uniform, so immaculate it was unsettling, next to a black nun's habit, strange and out of place for any occasion I could imagine. My heart started beating faster. A dark premonition invaded me. I stepped closer and then I saw it, a new box of condoms tucked into the side pocket of the suitcase. I stood there, my feet glued to the floor, the box of condoms, the costumes. What were they doing there? Isabel was a nurse, but she worked in a hospital, not in a theater production. I tried to find a logical explanation, but my heart was already screaming that something was wrong. Carefully, I lifted the top clothes. Beneath them were luxurious things I had never seen Isabel own, a sealed bottle of very expensive perfume, whose intense aroma escaped when I touched it, a pair of red high heels, the kind only worn by women who want to show off, and a dark red lipstick, a color Isabel had never worn in front of me. All of it was mixed so strangely. It looked like an arrangement painstakingly prepared to conceal something sinister. My eyes scanned the room, looking for more clues. On the bedside table, among a pile of disorganized papers, I saw a taxi receipt. I picked it up with a trembling hand. The destination was a coastal resort town, a place that had nothing to do with Isabel's work sick. She had told me the hospital only sent her to medical conferences in big cities. So, what was this receipt? What did this trip mean? My throat closed up as if someone were squeezing it tightly. I wanted to scream, to call Isabel immediately and demand an explanation, but reason told me I had to remain calm. I needed more proof to understand well what was happening before confronting her. But my mother's heart was already beginning to break. I had dedicated my whole life to protecting Alexander, to building a home for my son, and now, standing in the middle of that room, I felt like the whole world was collapsing beneath my feet. Before I could piece things together, a noise on the street startled me. The neighbor's dog barked loudly, followed by the sound of a key turning in the lock. Isabel was back. My heart pounded like a drum. Sweat ran down my forehead. I half closed the suitcase lid, trying to make everything look untouched. I quickly backed into the hallway. I closed the door just in time to hear her footsteps coming up the stairs. She entered the house with a small bag in her hand, her face radiant, as if she had nothing to hide. Seeing me, she gave me a wide smile and said in a clear voice, "Mom, I'm back. I just bought some things for the upcoming trip." That smile, that voice, they once brought me warmth, as if I had gained another daughter, But now, they only gave me the chills. I looked into her eyes trying to find a trace of a lie, but only found an unsettling confidence. I forced a smile, my voice dry. Yes, I came to get some things for Alexander. I didn't dare look at her directly. I was afraid my eyes would reveal everything. I hurried toward the closet. I randomly grabbed some of Alexander's light clothes and practically ran out of the house. When the door closed behind me, I felt as if I had escaped a trap. But the suspicion inside me grew, heavy as a rock on my chest. That afternoon, Alexander woke up after a restless sleep. His tired eyes barely opened, looking at me with a thread of hope. Mom, did you see Isabel? Is she home? His voice sounded weak, as if a wrong answer could shatter what little strength he had left. I squeezed his hand, feeling his ice-cold fingers between mine. The pain tore at me, but I only dared to answer vaguely. Yes, she's preparing for a work trip. I didn't want to look him in the eyes, fearing my own eyes would betray the doubts screaming inside me. I turned my face away, pretending to adjust the sheet over him, when I was actually trying to hide the tremor shaking my chest. Returning home late that night, I couldn't stop thinking about the suitcase and the strange objects in Isabel's room, the box of condoms, the nurse's uniform, the bright red heels. Everything seemed like pieces of a puzzle I still didn't dare to face. I had raised Alexander with all my love, sacrificing my young years to give him a good life. And when Isabel entered his world with her sweet smile and promise of love, I thought he had finally found a wife who would care for him as I did. But now that trust was shattering into pieces that pierced my heart. The house was silent when I re-entered. The ticking of the wall clock marked time firmly, reminding me that it waits for no one, not even a mother trying to protect her son from a painful truth. I decided I had to clear everything up. I couldn't let doubt consume me for another second. I sat down at the dining room table, took a deep breath, and waited for Isabel. She appeared shortly after, coming down from upstairs with a radiant face, as if she had nothing to hide. Did you already eat dinner, Mom? Isabel asked with her usual sweet voice. I nodded, forcing myself to remain calm. I already ate at the hospital. Is your trip so important that you prepared so carefully? I looked directly into her eyes, hoping to catch a small tremor, a hint of doubt, but Isabel immediately responded with such fluency that a shiver ran through me. Yes, Mom, I have to attend a medical conference in Monterey. It's only 3 days. It's a very important advanced training course. The hospital covers part of the expenses, so I'm also taking the opportunity to rest a bit. She even smiled proudly. Isabel's words were smooth, perfect, like a thoroughly rehearsed speech, but I was no longer the naive mother-in-law who believed everything she said. I nodded, pretending to believe her story, but deep down I knew she was hiding something from me. Very well, I replied in a neutral voice, and I turned away so she wouldn't notice my distrust. That night, Isabel ate with a strange haste, practically devouring her food, looking at the clock every few moments. I'm full, Mom. With your permission, I'm going to call my colleagues for a moment to talk about the conference, she said, rising to collect the dishes with surprising speed. I nodded, but when she left the kitchen, I couldn't help but follow her silently. From the corner of the hallway, I managed to hear her voice through the living room door. Don't forget to bring the reservation papers. Don't leave them behind. I want everything to go perfectly. Her soft laughter sounded light, yet sharp, like a knife. I didn't hear more because my silhouette reflected on the wooden floor, and Isabel immediately hung up, turning around with a forced smile. Do you need anything, Mom? No, I was just going to get a glass of water, I replied, turning away, although inside I felt my heart clench. My reservation papers. What kind of medical conference needs reservation papers prepared by someone else? I returned to the kitchen with trembling hands while pouring water, but with my mind fixed on a single idea. Isabel was deceiving me, and the worst part was that she was also deceiving Alexander. After dinner, Isabel quickly gathered everything like a whirlwind and slammed her bedroom door shut. From outside, I heard the sound of the suitcase being dragged, things being frantically packed. I stood in front of my bedroom door, my hand tightly gripping the arm of a chair, trying to contain the rage boiling inside. I wanted to go in, pound on the door, and scream that I knew everything, that I was aware of what she was hiding, but I didn't. I needed more proof. I'd had to be sure I wasn't mistaken, because if I accused Isabel without basis, I would hurt Alexander, my son, who was fighting second by second for survival in his hospital bed. I barely slept that night. The image of the open suitcase, the box of condoms, and the taxi receipt repeated in my mind like a nightmare. I lay in bed, eyes wide open toward the ceiling, my heart pounding fiercely. I thought of Alexander, of the days I rocked him as a baby, of the sleepless nights caring for him whenever he was sick. I had done everything to protect him, and now, just when he needed me most, I had to face the possibility that the wife he loved so much was betraying him. In the middle of the night, a slight noise in Isabel's room woke me abruptly, as if something inexplicable pushed me. I sat up in bed and silently walked down the hallway. Her bedroom door was ajar, and a faint lamplight filtered from inside. I held my breath, pressed myself against the wall, and looked through the crack. Then, the scene that appeared before my eyes made the blood in my body run cold. Isabel was sitting on the bed with a small, sharp needle in her hand, next to the box of condoms I had seen in the suitcase. One by one, calmly, she was piercing tiny holes in the tip, slow, precise, chilling movements. Her face under that yellowish light was no longer the sweet face I knew. It was cold, focused, as if carrying out a secret ritual, a calculated plan. I wanted to scream, to rush in and rip the needle away, but my feet seemed nailed to the floor. I just stood there, watching her wipe each condom with a tissue, put them back into the box as if nothing had happened, and then put them away in the suitcase. Afterward, she turned off the light, and the room sank into darkness. I returned to my room, my heart tight, as if an invisible hand was strangling it. A chill ran down my spine, making me tremble uncontrollably. The image of Alexander, weak in his hospital bed, mixed with that of Isabel, patiently piercing the condoms. What was she doing? Why? A terrifying plan began to take shape in my mind. I didn't want to believe it, but it was too obvious. Isabel wasn't just betraying Alexander, she was setting a trap, something crueler than I could imagine. I lay down, but sleep wouldn't come. I hugged my chest, trying to hold back the tears that threatened to fall. I thought of all the years Alexander and I had shared, the times I wiped away his tears when he failed, the moments he hugged me and said, "Mom, you are everything to me." And now, the wife he loved so much, whom I had trusted, was about to destroy everything. Before falling into a light, agitated sleep, I heard Isabel whispering on the phone from her room. "I'm ready. After this trip, you'll never be able to leave me." The next morning, Isabel appeared early, dragging the suitcase I had seen the night before. She was wearing a light coat, her hair pulled up, and she didn't look at all like a nurse going to a medical conference. She walked while talking on the phone, laughing softly in the silence of the morning. "Don't worry, I have everything ready," she said in a sweet voice, yet charged with calculation. Before getting into the taxi that was waiting for her, she turned, looked at me from the window, and smiled radiantly. "Mom, please take care of Alexander for me. I'll be gone for 3 days. I'll call both you and him." I nodded, forcing a smile, but my fingers clenched the curtain so tightly they turned white. When the taxi drove off, I ran to grab a piece of paper and wrote down the license plate number. I didn't know what I would do with it, only that I had to do something. Watching it disappear down the street, I returned to the house with a heavy heart. A decision was forming within me. I had to discover the truth, even if it hurt. At noon, I returned to the hospital and sat next to Alexander's bed. He looked a little better that day. His eyes shone more, although he was still weak. He took my hand and said in a hoarse voice, "Mom, Isabel left on a trip. I hope she comes back soon." His innocent words were like a knife in my heart. I wanted to scream everything about the suitcase, the pierced condoms, Isabel's false smile, but I couldn't. Seeing his pale face, I only squeezed his hand and whispered, "Yes, she's gone. Rest, I'm here with you." However, inside, I felt like I was betraying him, keeping a terrible secret that was consuming me. I couldn't bear the thought of Alexander still trusting Isabel, still loving her while she was planning something that could destroy his life. I thought of the years I had sacrificed, the sleepless nights caring for Alexander when he was little, the times I swallowed my tears to smile at him, just so he wouldn't worry. I've done everything for Alexander, and now I can't let the wife he trusts destroy him. I have to act. That afternoon, I went to see Mr. Johnson, a retired private investigator my lifelong friend Mrs. Rodriguez had recommended. His office was on the second floor of an old district where the smell of stale tobacco and coffee permeated the air. The room was small, Just a peeling wooden desk, an old armchair, and a few crooked family photos on the wall. Mr. Johnson, with a weathered face and cold, penetrating eyes, sat across from me listening in silence. I didn't hide anything, from the suitcase, the box of Pierce condoms, to the taxi receipt and Isabel's suspicious call. I handed him a paper with the taxi's license plate and another with the hotel address Isabel had left, forgotten, on the table. I need to know the truth, I said, my voice trembling. My son is in the hospital. He doesn't deserve this to be done to him. Mr. Johnson nodded without saying much, just writing a few lines in his small notebook. Stay calm, he said in a grave, even voice. If she's not innocent, we'll know soon. His words didn't console me, but they gave me a little hope. I left the office feeling like I had released some of the burden, but the pain was still there, sharp and constantly reminding me of everything I could lose. The next morning, my phone vibrated. It was Mr. Johnson. His voice sounded calm on the other end of the line. I already have the first photos. Isabel didn't go to the bus terminal for Monterey, as she said. She got off at a restaurant on the outskirts of the city and met with a man. They had lunch together, very close. I clenched the phone, feeling my blood boil. How close? I asked, my voice choked. Mr. Johnson responded, always serene. They sat very close. They touched hands, laughing as if they had known each other for a long time. I overheard them talking about a decisive trip and that after this, everything would change. Those words were like a punch to the chest. I sank into the chair, still holding the phone. Decisive trip. That phrase resonated in my head, evoking the image of Isabel with a needle in her hand, with her cold smile as she whispered on the phone last night. I knew she was planning something, but hearing it confirmed by Mr. Johnson was unbearable. Did you see that man's face? I asked, my voice broken. It's not clearly visible, he answered, but I'll keep watching. What do you want me to do now? Follow her trail, I said, with a voice firmer than I imagined. I need to know everything. I need proof. I hung up the phone with the sensation that the whole world was shaking beneath my feet. I thought of Alexander, of his smile when he talked about Isabel, the way he took my hand and told me he was lucky to have a wife like her. Every memory was now like a stab cutting deep into my heart. I had trusted Isabel. I had seen her as a daughter. I had opened the door to my family for her. And now, what was she doing? Betraying my son, betraying me, betraying everything we had built. That night, as I sat in the kitchen trying to eat a bowl of cold soup, my phone vibrated again. A message from Mr. Johnson. I opened it and felt my heart stop. It was a photo clearly showing the license plate of an old pickup truck. Below it, a short note. We have a lead on him. I stared at the photo, memorizing every number of the plate. That man with whom Isabel was laughing and talking so familiarly. Who was he? Did he know Alexander was confined to a bed, so weak he couldn't even sit up? Did he know that every day I prayed for my son's life while Isabel planned to destroy it? The next morning, Mr. Johnson arranged to meet me at a small corner cafe where the aroma of toasted coffee beans mixed with old songs on the radio. I arrived early, sat at a secluded table, clutching a glass of water, trying to control my trembling. When Mr. Johnson entered with his usual slow gait and hardened face, a chill ran down my spine. He didn't say anything. He simply placed a packet of photos in front of me and sat opposite. Look at them, he said in a grave, stone-like voice. I took a deep breath. With trembling hands, I opened the packet. The first photo squeezed my heart. Isabel sitting in the old pickup truck, smiling radiantly next to a man. He, with messy hair and a wrinkled shirt, leaned toward her, resting his hand on her shoulder as if it were the most natural thing in the world. The next image took my breath away. They were both getting out of the vehicle, holding hands, entering a cheap roadside motel with a neon sign that blinked faintly. The last photo was the final blow. Isabel was hugging him by the shoulders while he whispered something in her ear, and the smile on her lips had a dark meaning. I left the photos on the table, feeling like the entire world was collapsing. Each image was proof, an open wound in the trust I had once placed in Isabel. I looked at Mr. Johnson, trying to keep my voice from breaking. Who is he? Mr. Johnson adjusted his glasses, replying calmly. That man is named Roger Harris, a welder who lives on the outskirts. And this is the most important thing. He's already married. His wife is named Mary, and she's a nurse at the city's public hospital. They have 3 small children. His words were like a direct blow to the face. Not only had Alexander been betrayed, but another family was also being destroyed. Isabel, the woman I considered a daughter, was not only cheating on my son, but daring to meddle in the life of another woman, another mother like me. A wave of fury washed over me, mixed with deep pain. I had trusted her. I had opened my home to her. I thought she would be the one to care for Alexander when I no longer could. But now, what was she doing? Destroying everything, without hesitation. There is still more, Mr. Johnson continued, his voice still calm but full of weight. I recorded a snippet when they were leaving the motel. He took out his phone, pressed a button, and Isabel's voice resonated, cold and calculating. If I get pregnant, you won't be able to escape your responsibility. The man's voice, Roger's, was just a prolonged silence. I listened and felt the blood in my veins freeze. The image of Isabel piercing the condoms the night before appeared with total clarity. She wasn't just cheating, she had also planned to trap Roger, forcing him to stay with her. I thought of Alexander, of his innocent eyes when he spoke of Isabel, and my heart felt as if it were being tightly squeezed. Mr. Johnson handed me a card with the information of a friend of his who worked at a workshop. He confirms that Roger is a frequent customer, he said. He often boasts about his wife and his 3 small children as if he were the most exemplary man in the world. I took the card, squeezing it with my fingers until it wrinkled. A married man with children, and yet he allowed Isabel to drag him into this dirty game. And she had not only betrayed Alexander, but was also destroying the happiness of another woman, of innocent children. Returning home, I walked like a lost soul. The usual streets now seemed unfamiliar, as if the whole world had changed in a single night. I stopped at the corner where my neighbor, Mrs. Davis, was sweeping her yard. Seeing me, she took my arm and whispered, "Mrs. Carmen, last night I saw your daughter-in-law getting into a taxi with a strange man. They didn't look like co-workers at all. He was hugging her shoulders, laughing as if they were a couple." Mrs. Davis looked at me with compassion, as if she knew I was carrying an impossible burden to share. I just nodded, murmuring, "Thank you, Mrs. Davis," but inside all the pieces had already fallen into place. Her words only confirmed what I feared. That night, I sat alone in the kitchen under the yellowish light. In front of me were Mr. Johnson's photos spread out like cards of fate. Every image was a stab, every detail a reminder that I had been deceived. I saw Isabel in those photos, smiling, radiant next to Roger, and I wondered when she turned into that person. She had been sitting at this same table, eating the food I prepared, calling me Mom sweetly. I had believed her. I had loved her. I had thought she would be the one to care for Alexander in my place, but now everything was revealed as a farce. My hands trembled as I picked up the phone. I looked at Roger's number that Mr. Johnson had sent me and felt my whole body shake with rage and pain. I wanted to scream at him, ask him how he dared to destroy my family, how he could let Isabel drag him into that sick game. But I knew I had to stay calm. If I wanted to protect Alexander, I had to act with a cool head. "It's time to end this farce," I told myself with a firmness I didn't recognize. I dialed Roger's number. The ringtone sounded over and over, cold and tense, like a countdown to the moment the truth would come out. After a few seconds, a rough, cutting voice answered, "Hello." I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice as steady as possible. "Is this Roger Harris?" On the other end of the line, there was a second of silence. Then his voice sounded alert. "Who's calling?" I clearly heard the buzzing of a welder and the clanging of metal in the background, as if he were in a repair shop. I didn't beat around the bush. I went straight to the point. "I am Isabel Ramirez's mother-in-law. I'm calling to congratulate you because you're about to be a father." Silence. The machine abruptly shut off, and I could feel the panic over the phone. Roger's voice was trembling, clumsy. "Excuse me, ma'am, what are you talking about?" I emphasized every word with an icy tone. "From now on, you can tell Isabel she no longer has a home to return to. All her belongings will soon be sent directly to you." This time, Roger's voice sounded truly frightened. "Wait, she was already married." He spoke quieter, as if he had moved to a secluded corner. She told me she was single. I swear, I didn't know anything. His words came out weak, laden with excuses, but I no longer cared if they were true or false. I let out a cold, sharp laugh. You should explain that to your wife, Mary. As for my son, he will not be deceived for another day. I hung up the phone, my heart pounding fiercely, but with an iron decision in my chest. I wasn't going to let Isabel and Roger continue to hurt Alexander. I stood up, feeling my whole body trembling with rage and pain. I thought of Alexander, of his naive gaze when he spoke of Isabel, the way he took my hand and told me he was fortunate set to have a wife like her. Every memory was now an open wound, bleeding nonstop. I couldn't let her continue to deceive my son. I couldn't let her destroy this family any further. Without hesitation, I started packing Isabel's things. I opened her bedroom door. I took out every piece of clothing, every pair of shoes, every cosmetic from the closet. Every object was a reminder of her deception. The white nurse's uniform, the red heels, the expensive perfume. I threw everything into cardboard boxes without the slightest remorse. I moved like a machine, not allowing myself to stop, because if I did, I was afraid of breaking down. I thought of the meals I cooked for her, the times I hugged her when she cried about work, the times I called her daughter. Everything was now a bitter joke. Mr. Peterson, the kind neighbor, saw me stooping in the yard and crossed the fence. Is something serious happening, Mrs. Carman? Why are you packing like this? He looked at the stacked boxes with worry in his eyes. I just shook my head, my voice tired. I'm just taking out some old things, Mr. Peterson. Could you lend me your pickup truck? He nodded without asking more, although his look suggested he understood something wasn't right. Do you need help with anything else? He asked. I shook my head again, forcing a smile. Thank you, I can manage alone. As evening fell, black clouds covered the sky. I drove Mr. Peterson's pickup, loaded with Isabel's boxes, toward the area where Roger lived. The dirt road shook the truck violently, as if reflecting the storm inside me. I gripped the steering wheel tightly, trying to remain calm, but every turn of the wheels brought me closer to a confrontation I didn't know if I would have the strength to face. I stopped in front of a modest, single-story house with partially painted walls and a small, overgrown yard. As soon as I turned off the engine, the house door opened, and a woman came out. She was wearing a nurse's uniform, her hair tied up, and her face looked tired, but still reflected a mother's strength. There was no doubt. It was Mary, Roger's wife. I looked at her and, for a moment, saw myself, a woman who had dedicated her life to protecting her family, only to face betrayal. I got out of the car, trying to remain calm, though I was boiling inside. Hello, are you Mary Harris? I asked, trying hard to sound polite. Mary looked at me suspiciously, then glanced at the cardboard boxes in the truck. Yes, I am. Excuse me, are you? She replied in a soft voice, but full of caution, as if sensing something was wrong. I took a deep breath, feeling the air as a weight on my chest. I am Isabel Ramirez's mother-in-law, I said, each word torn from a bleeding heart. And here are all her belongings. I think you should know that your husband, Roger, has been having an affair with my daughter-in-law all this time. Mary's face suddenly went pale, as if the blood had drained from her kidney. The shopping bag she was carrying fell to the ground, and some yogurts rolled onto the grass. She stammered, her voice trembling. What did you say? Roger with Isabel? No, it can't be. She shook her head as if trying to reject reality, but her eyes were already starting to fill with panic. In her, I recognized myself again. A woman who had poured her soul into her family, only to be betrayed by those she loved most. I said nothing more. I simply walked over to the nearest box and lifted the lid. Isabel's clothes, red heels, an expensive perfume bottle. Everything spilled out under the faint light of dusk. Every object was confirmation that my words were true. Mary collapsed onto the step, covering her face with her hands, her shoulders shaking with sobs. From inside the house, a child's voice sounded innocent and clear. Mom, Dad's home. That call was like a knife in both our hearts. I felt my eyes sting, but I pressed my lips together not to cry. I hadn't come here to cry. I had come to protect Alexander and also Mary. Mr. Peterson, the kind neighbor who accompanied me, spoke cautiously. Ma'am, it's true, we don't want to disturb your family, but the truth must come out. His voice was soft but heavy, as if he wanted to share the burden with Mary. She looked up, her eyes red, and muttered bitterly, "I just finished dinner. I was still waiting for him." Her words broke as if her whole world was collapsing in front of her. I stepped closer and placed my hand on her shoulder, feeling her body tremble under my palm. "I'm a mother too," I said in a compassionate but firm voice, "and I must protect my son. Unfortunately, both you and I are victims in this story." I looked into her eyes and saw her pain reflected in mine. We were two women, two mothers forced into a war neither of us had sought, all because of the selfishness of those we once believed trustworthy. Mary squeezed my hand. Her gaze became intense. "Do you have proof? I need to see the proof." Her voice trembled but was full of determination, as if trying to cling to the last hope that it was all a misunderstanding. I remained silent. I took Mr. Johnson's photo album from my purse and handed it to her. Mary, trembling, flipped through the pages one by one, each photograph like another stab in her heart. When she reached the photo of Roger and Isabel holding hands, entering a motel, she burst into sobs, her strangled cry tearing the quiet of the place. Suddenly, the phone in her purse rang, the screen lit up, and clearly displayed two words: Roger. Mary's hands shook as if the phone were burning. She looked at me, looked at the screen, and finally, with a determined gesture, rejected the call. "He's not worth it," she whispered, her voice filled with rage. She turned to me, and her gaze was no longer one of desperation, but burned with anger. "Leave everything here. When he returns, I'll let him know what hell is." I nodded, feeling a part of the burden ease, although the pain was still there, sharp and reminding me of what I had lost. I returned to the car with Mr. Peterson, and we unloaded the boxes into the yard. Each box was like a declaration of war, an endpoint to Isabel's presence in my life and Alexander's. When we left the last box, I looked at Mary one last time. She was still sitting, immobile on the doorstep, the phone clutched in her hands, her gaze lost on the horizon. A lightning bolt tore the dark sky and thunder sounded, announcing the approaching storm. That night, I sat next to Alexander's hospital bed. The faint light of the bedside lamp illuminated my son's pale face. The sound of the machines marked a sad rhythm that reminded me of the days we fought together. Suddenly, my phone vibrated in my pocket, breaking the silence of the room. I looked at the screen and my heart sank when I saw Isabel's name. I took a deep breath, containing the rage that was rising in my chest, and answered. Her voice sounded on the other end, cheerful and confident, as if nothing had happened. "Mom, I've arrived in Monterey. The conference is very busy. I have to give a presentation tomorrow morning." I could hear the clinking of glasses, a man's murmur nearby, and the fake smile in her voice. Those soft, fluid lies were like a stab inside me. I contained my anger, my voice cold as ice. "Uh-huh. You must be very busy, so busy that you forgot your things in front of Roger Harris's house." I emphasized every word, as if wanting to pierce the shell of falsehood she had built on the other end of the line. Absolute silence. Only Isabel's agitated breathing was heard. I could imagine her face, her eyes desperate now, her smile frozen. After a few seconds, she stammered, her voice trembling. "Mom, I don't understand what you're talking about." I didn't give her a chance to continue her act. "You and that welder are exposed. His wife, Mary, already knows everything. Who do you think you can still deceive?" My words were like a blow, and I felt Isabel's panic through the phone. She didn't respond, only her agitated breathing was audible, as if she were trying to find an excuse and couldn't. At that moment, my phone vibrated again. It was a call from Mary. I answered, and her voice sounded choked, filled with rage and pain. "Mrs. Carmen, give me the number of that wretch. I need to talk to her." I didn't hesitate. I immediately connected the call so the two women could face each other through those invisible waves. Isabel's voice burst out, shrill and desperate. "Sister, you're wrong. Roger and I only have a working relationship." But Mary didn't let her finish. She roared so loudly that it even drowned out the sound of the rain falling outside. "Stop lying. I have the proof right here in my hands. What kind of woman are you, capable of abandoning your sick husband to go steal someone else's?" Mary's voice trembled with anger and pain. Every word was like a gash. I remained there, listening to that tense conversation, feeling my heart break in two. Isabel let out a sob and abruptly hung up, leaving an icy silence. I sat next to Alexander's bed. I squeezed his hand, but I didn't dare tell him anything about what had just happened. Outside, the rain wouldn't stop, as if the sky was also weeping for my pain. I thought of Alexander, of the days I accompanied him through so many difficulties, the times I wiped away his tears and promised him that everything would be okay. But now I didn't know how to protect him from this truth. Telling him that Isabel had betrayed him, that the wife he loved had planned to trap another man. I couldn't do it, not when Alexander was so weak, but I also couldn't allow her to continue deceiving him. I barely slept that night. I stayed next to Alexander, watching him sleep deeply, and felt the whole world crumbling. I thought of Mary, of the fury in her eyes as she held Mr. Johnson's photos. I thought of Isabel, of her false smile and her smooth lies. And I thought of myself, a mother who had dedicated her life to building a home only to see it collapse due to the betrayal of someone I treated like a daughter. The next morning, the neighbor, Mrs. Davis, came to the hospital to visit Alexander. She pulled me aside into a corner of the hallway and whispered in my ear, "Last night, I saw your daughter-in-law sitting on the porch of a strange house on the outskirts, completely soaked by the rain." Her words didn't surprise me. I knew Mary had thrown her out of Roger's house and that now she had nowhere to go. But I didn't feel any pity. She chose that path, and now she had to pay the price. That afternoon, I drove back home, my heart as heavy as the cloud-covered sky. A strange urge prompted me to detour to the outskirts, where Mary and Roger's modest house was. I didn't want to see Isabel. I didn't want to face the daughter-in-law who had betrayed Alexander, but a part of me needed to witness it with my own eyes. I needed to know that the price for the lie was being paid. The bumpy dirt road led me to the outskirts, where simple houses were scattered among overgrown yards. The rain began to fall. Heavy drops hit the windshield as if accompanying the storm inside me. When I stopped the car in front of Roger's house, the scene was exactly as Mrs. Davis had described. Isabel was huddled on the step, her hair matted and her clothes soaked, clinging to her pale body. The suitcase and the cardboard boxes I left yesterday were strewn under the rain. Some things, dragged by the wind, were rolling on the muddy road. The house door was closed, with no signs of life, except for the sharp cry of a child from inside, mixed with Mary's furious shouts. "I told you to leave! This is not a place for people like you!" Her voice was cutting, full of resentment, like a mother defending her home from an intruder. I stayed in the car a few yards away, watching Isabel pound on the door, her voice hoarse, almost desperate. "Roger, open up! I need to talk to you! I have nowhere to go!" Roger's voice came from inside, weak and cowardly. "Isabel, leave! I can't do anything!" His words were like the final knife cutting off all hope for her. Mary immediately silenced him, yelling, "Shut up! Let me handle this! Did you hear correctly, Isabel? He chose this family. You were just a temporary diversion." Mary's screams echoed in the humid air, Kish, loud and unrelenting. I gripped the steering wheel tightly, my gaze fixed on Isabel. A gust of wind blew open the suitcase. Clothes, cosmetics, the red heels, everything was scattered onto the muddy road. Isabel awkwardly knelt, trying to gather everything, but the rain mixed with her tears made it all futile. She hugged a soaked garment with trembling hands, as if trying to cling to the remnants of a plan that had already collapsed. I remained in the car, my heart cold. I didn't feel compassion for Isabel. She had chosen this path, to betray Alexander, to deceive me, and to destroy Mary's family. But in that instant, seeing her huddled under the rain, I didn't feel victory. I felt a deep ache, the pain of a mother who once loved her like a daughter, who believed she would be Alexander's support when I was no longer around. Every drop of rain reminded me that my trust had been betrayed, that the home I built for my son had been violated by someone I came to call family. Some neighbors started gathering under the eaves, murmuring, "Is that the girl from yesterday, right?" whispered one woman. "What is she doing here?" replied another. I heard those words, but I didn't turn my head. I didn't need to hear anything else. I already knew the truth, and that truth hurt more than any whisper. Isabel kept pounding on the door, her voice growing weaker and hoarser. "Mary, please, I don't want to destroy your family. Let me talk to Roger." But there was no response. Only the child's crying and the rain falling harder. After almost an hour of knocking in vain, Isabel gave up. She slumped onto the step, covering her face as she sobbed, tears mixing with the rain. The yellowish light of the street lamp turned on, illuminating her broken figure as if the whole world was witnessing the downfall of a traitor. I sat there watching her from afar, but with no intention of approaching. A part of me wanted to get out of the car, scream in her face, ask her how she could be so heartless. Heartless toward Alexander, toward me, toward Roger's own family. But I didn't. I knew that was the price she had to pay, and I didn't need to do anything more to punish her. Life had already done it for me. Night fell and the rain intensified. I turned the car around and slowly left the outskirts. In the rearview mirror, I still saw Isabel's figure, small and miserable, huddled under the street lamp. I knew that sooner or later she would return, and the only place she could think of was my house. Just as I imagined, that night when I returned from the hospital, Isabel was huddled on the steps, her clothes still soaked from the previous night's rain, her matted hair clinging to her pale face. The suitcase and some bags lay to one side, like the pieces of a shattered plan. I knew she would come here, that it was the only thing she could think of, but that didn't soften me. Seeing me get out of the car, Isabel struggled to stand up. She ran to hug my legs and cried inconsolably. Mother, please let me into the house. I know I was wrong. Please give me a chance to go back to caring for Alexander. Her voice was hoarse, trembling, like an abandoned child's. Tears ran down her face, but to me it was just an act, a play I was tired of watching. I looked at Isabel coldly and pushed her hand away from my legs. My son does not need a wife like you, I said in a dry, emotionless tone. If you wish, the porch is still available. I opened the gate, but I stood firmly at the door, preventing her from entering. Isabel knelt right there, clinging to my legs, pleading between sobs. Mom, please, I have nowhere to go. I'll do anything to redeem myself. But I simply shook my head, turned my back, and entered the house, closing the door of a portazo. Her crying echoed behind the wood all night, but there wasn't an ounce of compassion in my heart. I had loved Isabel. I had considered her a daughter. I believed she would be the one to care for Alexander in my place. But now, every tear of hers was nothing more than a reminder of the betrayal, of the stab she had plunged into my heart and my son's. I lay down and looked at the ceiling, listening to Isabel cry on the porch. Every sob of hers struck my chest like a hammer, but not out of pity for her. It hurt for Alexander. It hurt for my son, who was still in his hospital bed, naive, believing that the wife he loved was busy with work. I thought of the days of sacrifice, the sleepless nights caring for Alexander, the times I wiped away his tears and promised him that everything would be all right. Now I had to face a cruel truth. Not only did I have to protect Alexander from his illness, but also from the woman he loved most. The next morning, I arrived early at the hospital. Alexander immediately noticed my swollen eyes and asked worriedly, Mom, couldn't you sleep? Is something wrong? His voice sounded weak but full of care, as he always worried about me, even when he himself was fighting death. I looked at him and felt a knot in my heart. I knew the time had come for Alexander to face the truth, even if it shattered him. I couldn't keep hiding it. I couldn't give Isabel the opportunity to continue deceiving my son. I remained silent and took Mr. Johnson's bundle of photos from my purse. Alexander, Mom needs you to see this, I said, my voice trembling. Alexander's hand shook as he took the photos. The more he looked, the paler he became. When he reached the photo of Isabel and Roger holding hands, entering a motel, he cried out, his voice broken. No, it can't be. Isabel wouldn't do this to me. Alexander's cry tore the air, and I felt my heart also breaking with every word from my son. I passed him the phone, playing the voice recording of Isabel that Mr. Johnson had sent me. Her voice sounded cold and calculating. If I get pregnant, you won't be able to escape. Alexander froze. He dropped the phone onto the bed and buried his face in the pillow, crying like a child. My son's crying, full of pain and desperation, was like a knife sinking into my chest. I sat beside him, hugging his shoulders, but I didn't know what to say. Forgive me, Alexander, I whispered, my tears falling silently. I tried to protect you, but I couldn't. After a while, Alexander lifted his head, his eyes red, but with a firm gaze. Mom, from today on, I never want to see her again, he said in a hard voice, though still trembling. I'm going to file for divorce. His words were like a ray of light in the darkness, but at the same time, they hurt me more. I knew how much Alexander loved Isabel, I knew he had put all his heart into that marriage, but now he had to destroy it with his own hands, solely because of the betrayal of the woman he had trusted. That afternoon, as I sat next to Alexander, there were knocks on the hallway door. I recognized Isabel's voice, shrill and desperate. Alexander, please open the door. I need to talk to you. She knocked incessantly, crying, I beg you, listen to me. But from inside, Alexander only shouted one sentence with a voice full of pain and fury. Go away, I don't want to see your face again. Alexander's cry echoed in the hospital room, loud and determined. I remained there, holding my son's hand, feeling his strength, but also noticing how my heart was heavy. I had wanted to protect him from this pain, but now he had to face it alone. I looked toward the door where Isabel was still crying and felt a strange emptiness. I no longer felt rage toward her, only tiredness and weariness. Isabel had destroyed everything herself, and now she only had to face the consequences of her bad decisions. In the following days, after Isabel was chased away from the hospital, she vanished as if the earth had swallowed her. There were no calls or messages. Some said she had gone to the big city to look for work. Others claimed she was still lurking on the outskirts, surviving in cheap rented rooms. I didn't care. My heart had closed to her like my house door that night. But every time I thought of Alexander, of my son's tears upon discovering the truth, my chest ached again. A 68-year-old mother who had spent her whole life protecting her son, never imagined that one day I would have to protect him from the very woman he loved. A few months later, on a morning of gentle sunshine, Mrs. Davis, the neighbor, knocked on my door. She came in with a look full of worry. She leaned into my ear and whispered, Mrs. Carmen, your ex-daughter-in-law is back with a huge belly. Her words didn't surprise me. I had already sensed it since that night when I heard Isabel's voice in Mr. Johnson's recording, when she spoke coldly of the plan to trap Roger. But upon hearing Mrs. Davis's confirmation, I still felt a chill run down my spine. It wasn't out of compassion for Isabel, but because I thought of the innocent creature growing in her womb, a being that would have to bear the consequences of its mother's mistakes. That same afternoon, I went to the market to buy food for Alexander. While choosing vegetables at a stall, I suddenly saw Isabel. She was standing on a corner of the market, haggard and exhausted, her heavy belly making it difficult for her to move. Her clothes were old, mended everywhere, with no trace of the pretty daughter-in-law who once made me proud. Some vendors pointed at her back, murmuring among themselves, That's the woman her husband left. They say she cheated and got pregnant by another man. I stood there, watching Isabel walk by, head down, avoiding glances. I didn't feel a bit of pity, only a strange emptiness. She chose that path, and now she was paying the price. I heard rumors that Roger had rejected the baby, saying it was a mistake. Mary, his wife, upon discovering the truth, did not hesitate to file for divorce, leaving Roger no chance to return. I thought of Mary, of the firmness in her eyes when she confronted me that day, and I knew she would get ahead, just as I was trying to protect Alexander. But Isabel, she no longer had anyone, no family, no friends, not even a bit of dignity. Alexander, after days of being distraught, began to regain his strength. His illness was still there, but his spirits had improved. One morning, when I brought him his breakfast at the hospital, he looked at me and said firmly, Mom, I've already signed the unilateral divorce petition. I don't want to be tied to her anymore. I nodded, took his hand, and felt the determination in his gaze. The day of the hearing, Alexander did not look at Isabel even once. She stayed in a corner, her head down, unable to lift it. When the judge declared the marriage terminated, I saw Alexander's shoulders tremble, but he didn't cry. He just squeezed my hand tightly, as if to tell me he was ready to move on. It wasn't long before the news spread throughout the town like wildfire over dry grass. Isabel had given birth to a baby girl in a rundown room on the outskirts. The most brazen thing, the thing that made everyone talk, was that on the birth certificate she had put Alexander as the father. When that news reached my ears, I felt my blood boil. She dared to do that, to drag Alexander into her trap, even when everything was already over. I immediately contacted our lawyer. Alexander, though still weak, demanded a DNA test without hesitation to prove his innocence. I don't want my name tarnished, he said with contained anger. The result, as I expected, showed that the girl was not Alexander's daughter. Roger, when summoned to court, publicly denied any responsibility. He declared that he wanted nothing to do with Isabel or the child. Isabel, with the fatherless baby in her arms, became the laughingstock and the pity of the entire town. People looked at her with contempt, murmuring behind her back every time she appeared at the market or on the street. I sat in the kitchen, looking out the window where the sunlight faded over the familiar street. I concluded my story not with the joy of triumph, but with a bitter serenity. You reap what you sow. Isabel paid for her wrong decisions, but that price was not only loneliness or shame. She will have to live the rest of her life with the shadow of the past, with the innocent child she dragged into the storm she herself created. As for Alexander, my son, although he lost a wife, he regained peace and dignity. That night, I sat next to Alexander's hospital bed, watching him sleep deeply. His hand was still clutching mine, just as he did as a child whenever he had nightmares. Outside, the church bells sounded constant and serene, announcing that a new day had begun. I looked at Alexander, and my heart felt lighter than ever. The storm had passed, and although it left scars, I knew that we, my son and I, would move forward, stronger than ever. I have been through all these trials with a mother's heart, and now, looking back, I only want to leave a message about family life. Trust and sincerity are irreplaceable foundations. When we give our whole heart to a relationship, the betrayal not only destroys happiness, but also leaves wounds that are difficult for everyone to heal. But precisely from those ruins, I understood that no pain is useless. It teaches us to be stronger, to distinguish the true from the false, and to value the lastingness of family ties. Let us live with honesty. Let us not turn love into a deception, because in the end, whoever sows the wind will reap the whirlwind. And only goodness has the force to carry us through life's storms. The story you have just heard has had names and places changed to protect the identity of the people involved. We are not telling it to judge, but with the hope that someone listens and pauses to reflect. How many mothers are suffering in silence in their own homes? I truly wonder, if you were in my shoes, what would you do? Would you choose to remain silent to keep the peace, or would you dare to face everything to reclaim your voice? I want to know your opinion because every story can become a candle that illuminates someone else's path. God always blesses, and I am convinced that courage will lead us to better days. At this moment, on the final screen, I will leave two of the channel's most beloved stories. I'm sure they will surprise you. Thank you for staying with me until this moment.